St. Paul Street, the natural hub of St. Catharines for over 150 years. When you think about it, this street has seen a lot of change and a lot of activity. A friend and I were recently downtown, and he said to me, "What do you think would happen if all of the stores at the Penn Center moved downtown? What kind of downtown would that be?" Of course, being the historian that I am, I let my friend know that before the Penn Center was built, people shopped downtown. Food on King Street and at the market, businesses and trades and banks on Queen and William and James, and of course, clothing, accessories, laundry, tailoring here on St. Paul Street. What would it look like if stores from the Penn Center moved downtown today? Well, it might resemble St. Paul Street 100 years ago. Then that brought me to the idea of clothes shopping on St. Paul Street. Would it be possible for me to dress myself in the style of 1913, complete with high starched collar, bowler hat, and pocket watch, without leaving St. Paul Street? Challenge accepted.
But what was the typical day dress fashion for men in 1913? The Edwardian style called for regular day suits, and certainly no one would want to appear on the street without being fully dressed. Dress codes and societal expectations were a bit stricter than today's standard workplace dress code. I visited with local fellow historian and my supervisor, Meredith Leonard, at the St. Catharines Museum for a little bit of insight into what a man was required to dress like in 1913.
A man who wanted to be fashionable in the late Edwardian period would have a number of clothing items that he'd have to procure, including socks and shoes, pants, undergarments, a shirt with suspenders, a waistcoat, a pocket watch, a collar with collar studs, arm garters, a necktie, a suit jacket, a pocket square, cane with gloves, and either a top hat or a bowler, or an overcoat or frock coat. It was much easier to achieve the standard during the late Edwardian period than in earlier periods. Industrialization made ready-made clothing much easier to access, and they could just go down to a shop like Ecclestone's on St. Paul Street and purchase a number of the items on that list of fashionable items. So while industrialization made fashion and ready-made clothing more accessible for the public, it didn't mean that everyone was dressed on the cutting edge of fashion. There were still quite a bit of repurposing and recycling that would happen season to season. People would alter their clothes and even hand them down to different people in their family. So today, while we're able to access fashion almost instantaneously, styles and designs still took time to spread from fashion centers in Europe to cities like St. Catharines back in the early 1900s. So the difficult part for fashion historians is that not everyone in St. Catharines would be dressed the way Vogue says people looked in the early 1900s. They would take pieces from past seasons, pieces from different eras, and incorporate them into their own fashion. So we had really quite a hodgepodge of fashion design here in our city back in the early 1900s.
After learning about all of the items I'd need to dress myself as an Edwardian man, I decided to check out the fire insurance maps and business directories to see if this challenge would be possible to achieve. Fire insurance maps, like this one from 1913, were created to help assess fire insurance rates for buildings and companies depending on their material, size, land use, and fire suppression equipment. They are so helpful to urban historians like myself because they paint a detailed picture, including addresses, of what the community would have looked like. A map like this actually provides more information than a Google map does today. But fire insurance maps can't do it all on their own. Because there has been immense physical change on St. Paul Street, including a change of address in the 1930s, it's quite difficult to pinpoint locations of businesses. But that's when these handy business directories come in. The business directories list every street address of every business and personal residence in the city. By examining the business directories and combining them with the fire insurance maps, it's possible to tell who is doing what, where, and when. Using a combination of the fire insurance maps from 1913 and the business directories from 1912, 1913, and 1914, I was able to come up with the locations of a few stores I might shop at on St. Paul Street in 1913. Let's start with underclothes, socks, shirt, collar, suspenders, and arm garters. In 1913, the best place to get those items would be here at McLaren & Co. department store. Today, it's the Red Hot Chili Pepper. Next, I need to get collar studs and a pocket watch, two very important pieces of jewelry. Let's head over to J.S. Smith at 83 St. Paul Street, who in 1913 was a very popular jeweler for men. There was a whole series of buildings here in 1913 at 83 St. Paul Street. Here we have Mikado's just behind us, and then there was a whole series of buildings here in this parking lot. Jewelry, stationery, and boots. And over here at 83 St. Paul Street was J.F. Smith's jewelry shop, where I'll get my pocket watch and my collar studs. Today, it's conveniently pizza. Okay, what's next? We have to get a suit jacket and a pocket square and a necktie and a waistcoat, of course. We should head over to Ecclestone's at the corner of St. Paul and Queen Street. Ecclestone's, definitely the place to get your suit items and fancier wares. They were here in this location at the corner of Queen Street beside the Royal Bank from 1894 until about the 1920s when they moved up the street. They moved around a few times on St. Paul Street, but landed here in the 1930s at 86 to 92 St. Paul Street. In 1968, they moved again and moved up the street, where they were in operation until the late 80s. Next, I'll need some shoes, so let's head down to H. DeVore shop at 38 St. Paul Street. I'm here at the location of H. DeVore's shoe shop on 38 St. Paul Street. Shoes were just beginning to be mass-produced, so some pieces could be very expensive, or some could be very poor quality. So you might be replacing your shoes more often than you'd hoped. Thus, the plethora of shoe stores on St. Paul Street. In 1913, there were almost as many shoe and boot stores as there were clothing stores. Today, in 2013, there's only one shoe and boot store. We come to Biggs & Co. Furnishers to get our last pieces, our top hat, overcoat, cane, and gloves for a cold November day. But we want to make sure that everything fits, so we'd have to find a tailor. In 1913 on St. Paul Street, there were tons of tailors, here and there and everywhere. The closest one to this location is right across the street. But I don't think that you can get things tailored here anymore. In 1913, St. Paul wasn't completely paved, so it was quite the dusty place. It'd be important to have your shoes shined, and you can do so, according to this map, right here. What's important about all of this is the appreciation that comes with understanding the types of spaces that used to exist in our community, and how the people who lived here used and interacted within that space. It's amazing to think about how much fashion can teach you about a place.